We have discussed that if the installment amount in a loan is to be paid at the end of a year, then we apply the ordinary annuity formula in order to calculate the amount of installment and ultimately make a loan amortization schedule. But in many cases, it happens that the loan repayments are to be made at the beginning. यानी अगर आज ही मैंने लोन लिया तो आज ही मैं उस लोन की पहली इंस्टॉलमेंट भी रिटर्न कर देता हूँ. Practically, when loans are taken considering this mode of repayment, so the banks actually give us the amount of loan after deducting the amount of first installment out of it. यानी इफेक्टिवली जो हमें लोन की अमाउंट मिलती है वो पहली इंस्टॉलमेंट को माइनस करके हमारे पास आती है. लेकिन बहरहाल in our calculations we consider it as the first installment that is paid at 0 point, that is at the beginning of year 1. Now we'll consider the same example with 100,000 rupees loan taken for 5 years with an interest rate of 10%. But the only change that we are making in the example is that we are assuming that the repayment will be at the start of the year. Now the first thing that we need to do is to recalculate the amount of installment. क्योंकि amount of installment ऑर्डिनरी एनिटी के केस में और एनिटी ड्यू के केस में एक जैसी नहीं होगी. इन केस ऑफ ऑर्डिनरी एनिटी we have the formula of present value of ordinary annuity, but here we have got a different formula. ये वही फॉर्मूला है जो पहले हम पढ़ चुके हैं एनिटी ड्यू को डिस्कस करते हुए. Let's have a look at this formula. In this formula, we have small r as the rate of interest, which is 10%, and n is the number of installments, which is 5, but we reduce the number of installments by adding 1 in minus 5, and ultimately we add the amount of installment, that is the first one, and hence this formula actually gives us the amount of installment which is following the annuity due. So you can see, if you compare it with the amount of ordinary annuity installment, you can see that this is less than that. The reason for this installment to be lesser is that the first installment, which is paid at the 0 point, has reduced the amount of loan at the 0 point. यानी जो पहली इंस्टॉलमेंट है उसने इसी वक्त आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन को रिड्यूस कर दिया है और इफेक्टिवली जो हमें लोन की अमाउंट मिल रही है वो पहली इंस्टॉलमेंट को माइनस करके है. बिकॉज द अमाउंट ऑफ लोन इज लेसर नाउ and so the interest will be lesser, and as a result we'll have to pay a smaller amount of installment. Now let's have a look at the table that we have got. Have a look at these installments. The first installment here, it is at the beginning of year 1, and likewise all these installments are at the beginning of the year. हमने ये डिस्कस किया था कि इंटरेस्ट इज अ फैक्टर ऑफ टाइम ऑल्सो, यानी जब वक्त गुजरेगा तो इंटरेस्ट एक्यूमुलेट होगा. बट इफ वी हैव बोरोड एन अमाउंट टुडे राइट एट द पॉइंट एंड एट द सेम पॉइंट वी आर रिटर्निंग अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट, तो अभी तो कोई वक्त नहीं गुजरा और इसलिए इंटरेस्ट एक्यूमुलेट नहीं होगा. इसीलिए हम देखें कि पहली इंस्टॉलमेंट के अंदर इंटरेस्ट की अमाउंट ज़ीरो है और वो तमाम की तमाम इंस्टॉलमेंट असल में रीपेमेंट ऑफ प्रिंसिपल है, रिड्यूसिंग द आउटस्टैंडिंग बैलेंस टू 76,018. From the next year onwards, the calculations are very much similar to the one that we have discussed in the loan amortization schedule of ordinary annuity, where we'll calculate the rate of interest on the previous year's balance, applying the rate which is 10%, and then deducting out of the installment this amount of interest, getting the amount of principal that has been repaid in that installment. So in this case, you can see it is 116,379, which is the principal repaid. So at the end of year 2, we actually have got outstanding balance of 59,638. And these calculations will continue till the end of fifth year. So what will happen in the fifth year? That at the start of the fifth year, we'll pay this amount of 23,981, and the amount payable at the end will be zero, and that is at the end of that period. So the amount of interest, which is the third column, you can see we can add up the amounts of interest if we want to know that how much interest we have paid in the first 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or in any given year, the amount of interest that is to be taken into the profit and loss account, and the outstanding amount of loan that is to be shown in the balance sheet. So in this way, we can use this loan amortization schedule in order to calculate the outstanding balances, the principal, interest, and ultimately that the loan has been repaid.